Good evening to all who are here with us in our Zoom classroom today for another class of the Spiritist Review. Good evening to everyone who is joining us at the YouTube channel of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, and to all of you who might eventually just catch up with this class at a later time. It's nice to have everyone. And today we are giving continuity to our study. So as always, I will be opening my screen. Here it is. Let me get myself situated. Okay, so if you are joining us today for the first time, it's still a very good time to join in this conversation, this study. We are at the very beginning of the Spiritist Review from 1858. We are still in the month of January, and today we continuity of a presentation. In fact, I believe this is where we had stopped in our previous class, but I will go back just a couple of slides to help us to kind of revisit briefly what we spoke about. This article is called Physical Manifestations. And again, it's one of the articles in the beginning of this January magazine. So what we had talked about, we started with this statement that is in the very beginning of this article. In order to obtain such manifestations, it is absolutely necessary. And here he is referring to physical manifestations. So we're talking about mediumship. So manifestations, they're tangible, manifestations such as moving objects or noises that you might hear. So in order to obtain such manifestations, it's absolutely necessary to develop certain mediums whose physical constitution is in harmony with the spirits who produce them. So we're just starting to explore this idea of these mediums having to have a special physical constitution, and where, how do we understand this? Where do we find a little bit more of material in the codification to help us to deepen our knowledge around this topic? So the first thing that I talked about last time was, there's a difference between when we say everyone is a medium, which is true because we are all sensitive and under the influence of the spirits, and we can capture intuitions, inspirations, things that are whispers, so to speak, to us, and with our sensitivity, we're able to capture that. So Kardec, a lot of times in the medium's book, will speak about mediumship from this perspective, a more generalist perspective, if you will. But when someone asks you if you are a medium, they're not speaking at this level. They're speaking at a more specific level where you have a well-characterized mediumship, expresses itself through patent effects. It has a certain intensity and will depend on a more or less sensitive physical organization. So there's a specificity, specific attributes to the physical organization in order to be this type of medium, a medium with a more extensive mediumship. And the last one is just to clarify that mediumship itself, no matter what type of mediumship we're talking about, more general terms or specific, is inherent inherent to the soul. So it's an attribute of the soul itself, just like any senses that we have. For instance, vision. Vision is something that belongs to the spirit. The spirit is the one who sees. Yet, when we are incarnated in a physical body, we need to have specific organs so that this potentiality of the spirit can be expressed. So if our eyes are healthy, we will see through them. But if they are not, if the physical body does not have the capacity to serve as an instrument to the faculty that belongs to the spirit, then the person will be blind, at least while he or she is incarnated in an awakened state. So that is just an important difference that we highlighted in the last class. And so we made this distinction that the faculty belongs to the spirit, but it needs to be in the physical body. The body needs to be prepared, needs to have, again, some specifics that will allow the faculty to manifest. And also we touch on the medium's book, chapter 20, because it is in this chapter, in this item, that we find this statement from the spirits to Kardec, saying that the faculty per se is organic. So let's read the question. The question says, does the development of mediumship have any relation to the medium's moral development? And the answer is no. So meaning it doesn't matter whether you evolve or not, you can have that faculty. The faculty per se is organic and therefore independent of morality. So as long as the person has a body that is sensitive enough and capable of manifesting, then it doesn't really matter if he or she is more or less evolved. However, the same does not apply concerning its use. How it's going to be used, that yes, has to do with the moral level of the spirit. It can be used for good or bad according to the medium's character. So that's just a quick review of what we spoke about last week. And we stop right here. So what we are going to do now is actually we're going to go to the medium's book and part 2, chapter 5, item 98. And it's a long item, but we're going to read only 3 paragraphs that will illustrate a little bit more of this concept in the medium's book. So I'm going to give you, I don't know, Henrique was driving, so may not be able to, might need to follow by listening, but I'm waiting for Fatima. Let me know when you have it. I don't know if John has the book. No, okay.
By the way, all of these books, the Medium's book, the Spirit's book, Genesis, Heaven and Hell, they're all available for free PDF online in case you guys don't want to purchase it. Just wanted to point that out. It makes it easier also when you search by the word. So it's on febpublisher.com if you want to get it.
All right, and while we're getting ready, just want to take a moment to say hi to Marcy and Greg and to Josie, Cynthia. You guys came in a little later, so all right, so let's move on. Let me tell you where we're going to start. We are going to start on the second paragraph that says, in order to experience phenomena of this order. Is everybody with me? Yeah. No, Josie? Josie, do you have the book? Yeah, okay. So chapter 5. Find chapter 5.
Second part, by the way.
which is called Spontaneous Physical Manifestations. Got it? To chapter 5?
Yeah, but I don't know where part 2 starts. That's my problem.
Okay, so look at the items, the number of the items, because that goes in order. It's item 98.
Okay,
Might be easier to find by the item.
okay. You can start
Okay?
here.
Yeah, you got it, 98.
But it's okay, you can go. I don't want to hold it
Okay,
because of me.
okay. Why are we reading? See if you can find it. Item 98, okay?
But what's in the book?
I'm sorry?
What page of the book?
It depends on the edition that you have, but my page is 132, and this is the book that I have. It's probably the same. Let me see what you have there.
Oh, okay.
You
98
found it?
dissertation.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Great. Okay, wonderful. So, JC, you have it?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So let's go. In order to experience phenomena of disorder, it is indispensable to employ mediums who I shall call sensitive. That is, gifted to the highest degree with the mediumistic faculties of expansion and penetrability. The easily excitable nervous system of these mediums enables them, by means of certain vibrations, to profusely project their animalized fluid all around them. So we are talking about mediums involved with physical manifestations that part of the process is the donation of a lot of their own fluid, a lot of their vital fluid, okay, so that the phenomena can happen. Now notice that the spirits are speaking here about a central nervous system that is easily excitable. So it has a different level of sensitivity, okay? And he's going to continue on by saying, impressionable natures, those individuals whose nerves vibrate at the least emotion, who respond to the lightest sensation that influences them mentally or physically, internally or externally, are the most capable of becoming excellent mediums for the physical effect of tangibility and apportation. In fact, their nervous system, which is almost entirely deprived of the refractory envelope, which normally isolates this system in most incarnates, renders them appropriate for the development of these phenomena. So I don't even know exactly what they are talking about, but we can learn a few things here from these statements. These folks who perform this type of phenomena, which is making things visible, tangible, and moving stuff from one room to another, right? So not only their central nervous system is very, very, very sensitive. So let's say for a more crude nervous system, in order for it to capture a sensation, you would have to hit hard. But a very sensitive one, just a light touch reverberates, and the central nervous system is able to capture that because it's highly sensitive. But in addition to that, it seems that we have some sort of layer that protects our nervous system, and that in these folks, that layer is not there. When he talks about, in fact, their nervous system, which is almost entirely deprived of the refractory envelope, So something that is a protective layer to the central nervous system appears not to be there in these folks as much, which renders the central nervous system more sensitive. So again, I personally don't remember reading about this envelope anywhere else. I'm going to keep that in my mind, because if I ever see this again anywhere else, I want to put the dots together. But you know, it's a important piece of information. And again, the purpose of reading this is just to illustrate the fact that you know, it takes a special constitution and how the mediumship is indeed in the physical body. And I'll finish reading the paragraph and pass to Andrea. And then it says, thus a subject of this nature, whose other faculties are not hostile towards mediumization, will more easily precipitate the phenomena of tangibility wrapped within walls and furniture, intelligent movings about, and even the suspension in the air of any heavy inert matter. The same results will be obtained with greater certainty if, instead of just one medium, there are several equally endowed mediums available. So the more, the better, because a lot of times for these phenomena, it takes an incredible amount of fluid. And so the more mediums you have, easier it becomes to produce the phenomenon. Andrea.
Yeah, so just two things that I was thinking out loud here in the aspect of materialization and physical effects. One of them is sounds, which is really rare, you know, to have like music or voices. But there is a book in which Sueli Caldas Schubert, and unfortunately this book is still being translated, but it's called Divaldo Franco, A Life with the Spirits. And she basically reached out to a lot of people to find out if they had ever been exposed to any type of phenomena with Divaldo, right? And when we talked about music, there was an instance in which he says that the reason why the music sound was so short was because it required a lot of ectoplasm and a lot of his own magnetism to get the effect going. So this is really interesting what is being brought here. And I started to think about mediums who do have a mission and whose spirits might reincarnate in a future life without the mission of mediumship per se, like a very sensitive in such a way. So it kind of makes sense how it works from a physiological point of view when the perispirit, which is the one that gives the form, you know, to the physical body, doesn't have that one thing to be able to do physical manifestation, physical effects. Because, you know, if you think about Daniel Douglas Humes, or if you think about Chico Xavier and other people, they didn't have all of their existences as mediums. When you look at their past, because they talk about the type of mediumship that they had in this physical life, they didn't have in previous one, which talks about their own mission in this one. So that which you're talking about is what was, you know, there that allowed, you know, normal people like us to not be able to do the things that mediums that don't have it are able to do. So I don't know if I made it more confusing, but I was just thinking about that.
John, you need to unmute yourself.
I was thinking from what you said, this is in the 1850s. Did they ever get together a bunch of these more sensitive or highly sensitive mediums? Imagine what would happen. I could only imagine what would happen, because they just said, if you have more mediums together that are there, this effect is magnified. So imagine if you got 6 Divaldos, a couple of Chicos together, what you could manifest would be amazing.
True. Very true. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. So interesting stuff. There's so much that we don't know. I always like to think, what is the point of talking about those things anyway?
Yes.
And one of them, where my mind goes, is the human potential. The superpowers that we have, we call them superpowers because they are unknown to us, so many of them. Even with just the simple, power of our minds, um, our minds are capable of so much, and we still underutilize. And the anemic capabilities of the soul. We're talking about mediumistic phenomena, but each one of us is a spirit, and we have capabilities in this area of mediumship, but also in anemic, the potentialities of our own soul. For instance, to purposefully and consciously expand our perispirit and make ourselves more sensitive. The ability to look at someone and develop spiritual visual acuity and be able to see beyond the physical, auras, things like that. All these are potentialities that we have. And the more we become spiritualized and the more we become, and the less we become material in our physicality, our spirits will be able to express themselves. Right now, they're very incarcerated in this physical body, and we use a very small fraction of our spiritual potentiality. But so it's kind of, where that's where I go a little bit with this type of stuff. So much that we don't know, so much to learn and so much to develop.
I appreciate you saying this, Susanna. I was talking to Marcelo the other day and I said, I was actually translating your slides for the Spiritist review that you did in Portuguese. And I was thinking about that because we read, we think we understand, but there is a world that we don't have access to yet that we still don't understand. So it would be foolish to say, yeah, we completely understand what this means. But even when you question somebody, like if you watch Pinga Fogo for Chico Xavier and other mediums, they can't explain exactly the process of things they see and things they know, because we wouldn't understand, and they don't have the words to explain it. So that's
you now have to explain to whoever is listening to us and might be just following this conversation and heard two words that may not make any sense for you. Pinga Fogo. So Andrea is going to explain briefly what she's referring to.
Sorry about that. So I think it was in the 70s that there was Chico Xavier allowed himself to be interviewed live on television with his spirit guide, Emmanuel, in which several questions were posed to him. And Chico Xavier was known in Brazil mostly, considered the medium of the century, somebody who supposedly has all of the medium mystic faculties listed in the medium's book. So he's phenomenal. So he allowed himself to be, broadcasted live. And at that time, that was amazing. It was record at that time for the TV. And actually, a few people that we've come to know personally were there, like Janet Duncan, who lives in London. She's 98 right now, I think. She's a pioneer in Spiritism in the UK. She was there. She was very young. And also Sueli Caldas Schubert, who died last year and was also an amazing Spiritist disseminator and also a medium. So.
Okay, thank you. John.
Let's make sure. Yet these days, as we've said before again and again, these days of manifestation, these days of evoking are over. I don't know how it is worldwide, but just in my tiny sphere, there seems to be very little of this, very little, almost negligible. We were told that these days are over and we have to concentrate on other things. I wonder, that is it the same worldwide? And it's just something that now we read in the Spiritist Review and we talk and we really don't participate in a level because it seems this is not the direction to go. It's fascinating, but I wonder, worldwide, is it just quiet and not spoken of?
Yeah, I don't hear nowadays of like this level of phenomena that we are talking about here, not as much. Certainly not in this format where things were happening and being studied. We did talk about that last time. I think we have nowadays a level of science that we didn't have at the time, and things can be investigated, taking less of a toll on these mediums who, you know, it took an incredible physical toll on them to produce this type of phenomena. And, you know, we mentioned this last time. Today we have resources and we have other experiences. They're quite amazing, like near-death experiences, which we didn't have at the time. And they are quite compelling and telling of spiritual realities. We have science that looks at, you know, proofs of reincarnation and studies in this area, which we didn't have at the time. So I think times have evolved, and we do have many other types of manifestations. They are more in line with where we stand scientifically. But I will readdress this issue a little later on, and certainly on the next class, because and I'll give to Andrea before I move forward. I think that there is room for expansion of what we have been doing. I think that mediumship will tend to become much more of a daily living practice than, you know, confined to four walls of the spirit center. You know, and I will explore that idea a little later on. Andrea.
Yeah, I forgot to put my mic. It's interesting that John has asked this, and we've talked about this often. Two amazing mediums that we've already mentioned, Divaldo Franco and Chico Xavier, who in the beginning of their mediumistic mandate started to do physical manifestation type of effects and phenomena, which called a lot of attention. But both of their spirit guides, their mentors, told them that their present existence was not, their mediumship was not to do physical effects. It was to be targeted towards the books, because the books stick. You may watch a beautiful presentation by Susanna, something catches on, but later on you forget the whole content that you talked about in an hour. But a book stays. A book is extremely important. So it goes to say that perhaps the greatest phenomena, and this is something Susanna said a long time ago, that we might yet witness, is the moral, right? The moral development, the moral progress of humanity. And I just wanted to say here, Brian, hey, Brian, welcome. Brian also made a question comment on the chat. He said, is it also possible time to adapt what we have received, like a calm between the storms?
Is that on the chat you said that he put it?
I can jump in if you want and answer that, because it was what we discussed at the Florida Federation, is like with Divaldo being as advanced as he is in years, when he disincarnates and moves on, there is really no one left in the world today that is as ostentatious a medium as he is or as Chico. So it would be kind of like a calm in between where we can take all the writings of Chico, all the writings of Divaldo, all the writings of all the other mediums, incorporated into the teachings of Kardec, and thus built a more comprehensive knowledge base based upon all these teachings and all these workings and everything else. Because it's so fresh, it's so new. We really haven't had a chance to integrate the two kind of like periods of knowledge. Like we had the first batch with Kardec, Leon Denis, and them, and then we had Chico, Divaldo, and all those with the books that like whereas Kardec set the foundation, Chico and Divaldo built the structure. And there might be more floors and more things to come. But for now, that's like, we have this and we should learn what can we learn from this and how can we integrate these together into our day-to-day lives. Like we're sitting here, like the screen says Medium's book, part 2, chapter 598. But what about the things we've learned from Andre Luis, the things we learned from Emmanuel, from Joanna De Angelis, on how this teachings affect our day-to-day lives, how we should be charting our society forward based upon all these additional teachings.
Yes, and Brian, and I want to, but I want to highlight that this is where we are in the Spiritist trajectory. There is a trajectory outside of Spiritism, and and so in the Spiritist movement, I think that all that has been said fits. But there is a movement that is the movement of spirituality. And from that perspective and under these umbrellas, there is a lot happening. There are mediums everywhere. There's phenomena everywhere. And then there's science on the parallel to all that. So maybe it's not available in this more pure form that we are talking about here, but there is stuff. There are manifestations, all kinds of manifestations in many different areas for all kinds of people, interest, curiosity, needs, right? But in Spiritism right now, it feels like very much what Brian say, we have been given so much. The body of knowledge is like, I feel like I would need like several lives just to like digest what it is as it is. So much learning to do. Just like what we read here. I had read this before. I had read the Medium's book before, but I actually didn't remember the mention of this refractory layer that protects the central nervous system. I didn't remember reading this before. Here I am now like, wow, where else is this mentioned in Spiritism? Because, that's what I do for a living, right? I am a specialist in neurology. I love that type of stuff, and I'm super curious and thirsty to know more about this. So John, I think there's a place for other things, because we need other things. We need different mediums in different places, in different religions, because mediumship is not, it does not belong to Spiritism, right? It belongs to humankind. And so, all right, it was a great discussion about this. Let's move on. Let me get back to the presentation. So we did this. Now, next is in the chapter Physical Manifestations, right? There is a statement. There is a part where Kardec is going to talk about paid mediumship. And if you, let's see if you guys, now you need to have your Spirits Review in hand, the chapter of Physical Manifestations. And right in the middle of it, if you have my edition, which is this one here, okay, it will be on page 14 at the very bottom. It talks about Mr. Home. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Mr. Home down this volume. There's more references to this character, but we're not going to get into it right now. But there is a sentence that starts by saying, if Mr. Home were a charlatan, he would not have refused the magnificent offers from many public playhouses and would have accumulated fortunes. His disinterest is the strongest answer that one can give to the detractors. An uninterested charlatanism would be unwise and a monstrosity. Later, we will talk in detail about Mr. Home and the mission that brought him to France. Meanwhile, here is a fact of spontaneous manifestations, and then he's going to get into the case and the story. So I just want to bring a reference for you guys if you ever need to study these, or if you want to go deeper into these items. There are different references in the works of Kardec. In the Gospel According to Spiritism, there is an item that you can speak and read if you want, that talks about free mediumship, that we should give for free what we receive for free. But also in What is Spiritism, there is a reference, and I put the reference there for you. It's part of the first dialogue with the critic. So if you have What is Spiritism, and if you have this particular book that I have right here, it would be in page 57. And let me give, Mary, you have it? Okay, you got it? Okay. Anyone else has this book in hands or? Okay, so there is a point where Allan Kardec is, John, page 57, where Allan Kardec is talking to the visitor. And he will ask the visitor, how much did he pay to see the phenomenon? Prior to this, the visitor is saying that, you know, he had seen tables turning, raps produced, and people writing supposedly under the influence of the spirits, but he's convinced that charlatanism is involved, okay? So then Kardec is going to say, okay, and how much did you pay to watch all of that? And he say, why, nothing, of course. So then Kardec is going to say, well, they must have been an odd breed of charlatans, and they will give a new meaning to the word. Until now, no one has ever seen a charlatan who wasn't in it for the money. If some mischievous hoaxer happened to want to entertain himself once, would it follow that other persons were in association with him? Moreover, what would they hope to gain by being accomplices to a hoax? To amuse people, you will say. I will admit that someone might pull a hoax once, but if a hoax goes on for months and even years, I would say that it is the hoaxer who is being duped. Would someone sit tediously at a table for hours on end for the sheer pleasure of making others believe in something he or she knows to be false? The pleasure will not be worth the effort. Before concluding that something is a fraud, we must first ask ourselves what might be gained from such deceit. you will agree that there are situations that exclude all suspicion or fraud, and that there are individuals whose character alone is a guarantee of honesty. And then he's going to go on to say that, you know, I have said all that, but still, it could be, you know, a charlatan somewhere. But it doesn't, the same way that you might one day run into a bad wine, it doesn't mean that all wines out there are bad. It just means that you ran into one bad wine, right? So the same thing. There are charlatans everywhere. We read here on the paper once in a while, doctors, they're taken into custody from doing surgeries and procedures that they were not licensed to do, right? We see all the time on the paper. It's kind of crazy. People die or are deeply harmed by these malpractices. So if there is in medicine, I mean, we know that they are everywhere. But one of the strongest guarantees against charlatanism comes from the fact that it's not paid. So his argument here is, well, maybe you're just trying to kind of play around with people, right? Sure, you would do that once, but as a career, something that you keep doing over and over and over for years and years, it doesn't seem to make sense just for the sake of entertainment. And so that is the argument that we see here in the Spirit's Review, and that we see here in What is Spiritism, and that we can also find in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And there's more to this. We have discussed this elsewhere, but also in Spiritism, mediumship's practice is based on Jesus as a reference of someone who was the medium of God, in the sense that he was the instrument for the delivery of the divine message, and he used all his power and all his love and all his ability to heal, to lift, to assist humankind. And so in Spiritism, being Spiritism, the consoler, the promised consoler, we try to practice according to the examples set by Christ. So mediumship is very much associated and deeply connected, and its meaning is in the practice of charity, in the assistance of others. And one final aspect to what I'm saying is the fact that, again, it's if I am using my own skills to deliver a service, and those skills are something that I have invested on, fair enough, that I will charge for a service that belongs to me. But when we are just the bridge, the intermediary, then the source of the knowledge, it's not enough. It's outside of us. And therefore, we cannot guarantee the service. That's the bottom line. And if we promise a service that we are not the source of the service, it makes us a lot more vulnerable for charlatanism, because we are, in a way, a lot of times forced to deliver something that it's not there to be delivered in the first place. So this is the rationale behind the practice of mediumship in Spiritism. It's practiced differently elsewhere, which it's not our business or place to judge. There's a place for everything in this world, but in Spiritism, that is the way that it is understood. and it is the way that it's practiced. But I just want to again bring this reference for you guys. Not sure if you were familiar with this dialogue in what is Spiritism. At this time, is there any comments or questions that you guys would like to add to this? If not, we can move to our next slide. So that was about questions and comments. And okay, now we have the stories. So these, just to end this chapter about physical manifestations, the article finishes with a story. So does anyone here would like to summarize for us what the story is about, so that we have on record here for our class the story that is narrated in this article, Physical Manifestations, and that illustrates a phenomena of physical manifestation? Who remembers what the story is about? John, tell us the story. Unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself first. We are practicing the potentialities of our spirits and trying to develop our hearing, and read minds, but not quite there yet. So,
Is this the story about the maiden and the bell?
yeah, tell us.
I can remember. Well, there was, once upon a time, there was a maid in a household that was a beautiful, loyal, hardworking maid. And there was a neighbor that didn't like that maid. You got to correct me if I don't remember exactly.
So
I do remember about
beautiful. So far, beautiful. Go on.
Now, so I guess this neighbor was jealous of her for some reason. I don't think we know why. But one day, the maiden was on the way back to the house that she worked in. And either someone was after her or she thought someone was after her. And she ran to the house that she worked in and wanted to ring the bell to let her in to save. And the bell was broken. Well, the poor thing with the broken bell, how could she summon the people in the house? I guess I'm making this up. It was a big house and screaming wouldn't really help. So anyway, out of nowhere, the bell rang, and lo and behold, she was saved. So far, so good.
Perfect.
And they investigated it the next day, and lo and behold, the bell was broken. Yet somehow that bell rang. To add insult to injury, that bell started ringing by itself. At first, they thought maybe it was the neighbor that was ringing the bell or someone else, but lo and behold, that bell started ringing at odd hours of the day and night and driving them crazy. Now they tried to evaluate this, and they said, well, the bell only started ringing even when it was broken. I don't know if they fixed the bell in between, but anyway, it started ringing by itself. Anyway, they thought, what else could it be but the young maid, that the bell never did this until she was there? And lo and behold, they sent the maid away, or I don't know if she was fired, but they sent her somewhere else. And the bell mysteriously never rang again.
That is perfect. Wow. great
surprised
memory,
I
and
remembered that.
you remember with details. It was really yeah, you put it very nicely. That is the story. So Kardec at the end, he's going to question a little bit about what happened. I'm trying to find here where it is. I thought I had. He says the young lady, of course, was not ringing the bell. She was terrified with the fact to think about a joke where she would be the first victim. No less positive is the fact that the bell ringing was due to her presence, as the effect ceased when she left. So she seems to be causing it, because once she left, she was sent to the other house, the phenomena stopped altogether. So he's going to say the doctor who witnessed the fact explained it as a powerful magnetic force unconsciously exerted by the young lady. So there was this idea, this hypothesis, there was a magnetic phenomenon that the young lady was producing. This explanation by no means seems conclusive to us. Why should she have lost such a power after leaving the house? So after she left, seems like it never happened again, neither in the house, neither where she was. He argues that the terror generated by the neighbor produces super excitation on the young maid, and that the effect would have ceased with the cause when these two connections were severed. So while she was at the house, she was in such a state of like whatever, fear, terror, that her whole being was overexcited, and that triggered her ability to produce the phenomena. That was the doctor's theory and explanation. We confess that the argument is not convincing to us. If the intervention of an occult power is not clearly demonstrated, at least it is likely, according to similar cases that we have experienced. Thus, admitting such an intervention, we will say that under the circumstances of the fact, since its first occurrence, the protective spirit wanted to probably protect the young lady from harm's way. So what Kardec is considering is that it could be the intervention of some good spirit trying to protect that young lady in first place. As such, by leaving the house, despite the affection granted by her employers, could perhaps have been her own interest. So we don't know. We don't know what was ahead for her. So what Kardec is speculating is that that phenomenon, that physical manifestation, end up leading to her departure, which, you know, could have been a good thing. Could have been something that was done in order to move her away from some danger, from some harm, to protect her. Once the lady had left, the spirit protecting this young orphan was no longer required to continue with the noise. So it's not all conclusive. He didn't say this is what's happening, but he is, again, let's remember that the Spirit's Review is kind of a laboratory for Kardec, where he's getting in touch with the phenomena for the first time. He's studying, he's doing his own mind work, right? And then what we're going to see later in the Medium's book and in other works of Kardec is more like his conclusion. It's like the body of knowledge that he's taking from all these experiences, from all these dissertations, these articles, where he is, what we're witnessing here is his own thinking. He's elaborating, right? And then a lot of stuff we're going to see later that he takes from here and passes straight to the work of the codification or not, sometimes with some modifications. We have seen, for instance, in articles prior to this one, different names given to different mediumistic faculties that initially he gave certain names. He had to name them something, but then in the medium's book, we're going to see them called slightly different. So just kind of a reminder to keep that in mind as we go through this. And he could just materialize himself on the screen. Good. I'm glad you made it home. You started the meeting driving, and now he is in his home. Okay. So, any other comments about this story or anything else? Because this is the end of this this article. We have a few minutes. We can start on the next one, but. So for the next articles, what we have is the goblins. And this is an article that I'm going to let you guys read on your own. I'm not going to be like commenting on it necessarily, because it's just like pretty much showing how you have these phenomena that we have been studying across time, across cultures, spirits who make noises and kind of play around with phenomena have been given different names in different societies. And so it's just a narrative of, again, different ways in which the spirits related to the phenomena have been called and characterized across time, history, and cultures. So it's kind of an interesting reading, but we are not going to get too much into it. So let me open the other presentation. Give me 1 minute. We are the next one. I'm not sure if we have it translated yet. Andrea.
It's translated.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to see. Maybe I have to reopen my.
Hold on. Let me see on my OneDrive. Spiritist review. Yeah, on mine it here 4 hours ago was edited.
Okay, it's maybe
Do a refresh on yours or log out, log in.
Yes, I will.
Maybe it hasn't refreshed.
So guys, give me 1 moment. Let me see if I can get back to this. Open my OneDrive. And now let me go to my files. Search review. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, it needed a refresh. Okay. No. Okay. So you should be seeing my presentation, are you? Classified. Okay. So again, these were the 2 articles. We usually go 2 by 2. So for the goblins, it's a reading on your own. And next article is called Private Evocations. And the title is Mom, I Am Here. And before I get into it, let me just ask if you guys had a chance to read these 2 articles. Did everybody? Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. So we are going to, before we dive into the article itself, we're going to look a little bit about evocations. So let's see what we have about evocations. Here we have the Spirit's book, question 935, where Kardec asks, what about the opinion of people who regard communication with those beyond the grave as sacrilege? John, read for us, please, will you? The answer, unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. There can be no sacrilege where there is reverence and when the evocation is made with respect and propriety. The proof of this is that spirits who have affection for you take pleasure in coming to you. They rejoice in being remembered and in being able to converse with you. There would be only sacrilege if evocations were made frivolously. That's a big statement, a big statement.
Tell me why.
Well, I'm pretty curious in hearing an evocation, which again, like manifestations, are really downplayed. It would be amazing to see in a group an evocation. Yes, we don't know if it's the person. Could it be a spirit that's imitating a person? It could be, but this is a big statement because
Yes.
if it's done with respect and propriety, that's something that some of the things we talked about, what the human mind, what our soul connection could be. It's intriguing.
Right. That's why I told you, because I knew this was coming. And that's why I told you that I was going to get back to it and we would expand on it a little bit. Okay. So forget about mediumship groups. Forget about that. Let's go a little beyond that. Do you evoke a spirit in your daily life?
Sure, you asked.
And think about evocation in a more broad way, right? What is to evoke if not to call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
I ask my spirit guide. I ask for help and attention. I ask for a lot of things. So
Dude, you're a
yes,
big evoker.
yes, I guess I do evoke, of course.
I do too. I like to evoke. I call for certain spirits. I say, if you're busy, send me a messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the spirits are very busy. I think, I am very busy all the time and I am no one. So I think the spirits who are like highly evolved spirits, they probably like, super busy with humanity, but I call them anyway, because I know that, they will, if they cannot be there in person, they will send their ambassador to answer the evocation. Because if it's done again, let's go back to it. If it's done with reverence, with respect, with propriety, like sometimes my grandmother, sometimes my father, who is now on the other side, say, hey dad, today, like whatever, it was your birthday. I would love to feel you closer to me, why not? Right? So we can call, we can evoke, most definitely. Mary.
Susanna, remember the day I could barely breathe with my back? My back was hurting.
Yeah.
I evoked, during my past, I evoked Dr. Bezerra de Menezes,
Right.
Sister all of them that I could think that were related to health.
Right.
And I tell you, the following day, I was much better.
Great. Wonderful. So that's one point that is important. That's why I brought these. This is the Spirit's book, Fatima.
Well, I evoke most of the time my guardian angel
Mhm.
You know, my relation with him or her, I don't care, is like a best friend that you all the time when you have a problem, you say, hey, you have a time for me. Can you hear me out? Can you help me in something? I sit and talk with him or her, I don't care, as a best friend, you know, somebody very, very close to me. And then I not only evoke her just for guidance, but to say, hey, thank you. Thank you for inspiring me on that. You know,
Right.
I think it was you because of was me. You know, so I like to have that kind of very close relationship. And then I don't evoke much those, you know, big spirits. I think they are so busy to do a lot of things. And then, you know,
But
I like to
they
take
have
out.
big teams. They have big teams. All of them have
Yeah,
big teams.
they have. But if I have, you know, my guardian angel with me, why not have a conversation with me? You know, he can interfere for me. He can be my ambassador as well. You know, and
Right.
sometimes I talk to him. They say, "Hey, can you have a conversation with the maybe I can be help or something?" You know, I know you are my side. Seriously, I have that kind of intimate conversation. So, and then tell
Fatima
the
has
truth,
tea
I can
time
feel
with the
the energy.
spirit.
Yeah, I can feel. I can feel. And I can feel when they say, hey, stop, you are doing something wrong. Come on. So, you know, I heard that as well. So, yeah.
Great. All right. Okay, dokie. So let's move on here and see what else we can learn about this. So in the medium's book, chapter 25, item 269, let's see. Greg, would you like to? We haven't heard your voice today. Is this something you can do? Can you read for us? 269?
But before we start, I have a question about a word on the second line. I'm not sure how to say it. It's NG by itself.
You have a question about the second line
Yeah, there's
on this slide or the previous one?
on this one,
Ah, okay.
spirits can communicate spontaneously or by answering our
Oh,
call. You know what that-
oh, I don't know. Sometimes I type, Andrea typed this slide. I don't know what happened here. Our own call, just put our own call. I don't think that's probably just a typo right there.
That is, they can be evoked. I'll start again. Spirits can communicate spontaneously or by answering our call. That is, they can be evoked. Some people think that spirits should not be evoked at all, and that it is preferable to wait for the one who wants to communicate. They believe that in calling a certain spirit, we cannot be sure that it is who it claims to be, whereas one who comes on its own initiative better proves its identity, since it thus shows its desire to converse with us.
Okay, so this is one point of view here that that the spirits are putting for us, right? So again, some people think that the spirit should not be evoked at all because how are we gonna know if it is the actual person that we call for that is there to communicate or not? And when someone is communicating spontaneously, that person is there, chose to be there. And so it's less likely that is one, you know, it's not that actual person. So that's what Kardec, the spirits put over here. Now, let's see what Kardec says about that. Go ahead.
In our view, that is a mistake. First of all, because we are always surrounded by spirits. most of whom are less evolved and who are eager to communicate. Second, it is for that very reason that if we do not evoke a particular spirit, we open the door for all those who would like to enter. In an assembly where no one in particular is given the floor, it would be open to everyone, and we know what the result of that would be.
Interesting, no? Very interesting, because Kardec is saying, I don't think so. I don't think that that is the best way to go. He's actually arguing for the contrary. He's saying that, you know, again, you open the door, how can you guarantee what kind of spirit is there? What level of evolution of the spirit is there? Any spirit can step in and talk and manifest himself or herself. So again, it's just like really, really interesting to see the Kardec's approach to this issue, because a lot of times we hear things that seem like a rule that applies to everyone, everywhere, in all the times. And it's not necessarily like that. So we're going to be looking into a few other aspects before we come to like a final conclusion. So he's going to continue here by saying, by directly appealing to a certain spirit, we establish a link between us. We have called it by our will and thus have set up a sort of barrier to intruders. Without a direct appeal, a spirit would often have no reason to come to us unless it was our own familiar spirit. So again, he continues in defending the idea that it makes sense to call a specific spirit as opposed to just open to any spirit to manifest itself. And then this is one of the greatest conclusions that he brings to us when he says, both of these types of evocation have their advantage. However, and there would only be problems if one of them were excluded. So there is a place, there is a time, there is an advantage for each one of these evocations. We only would run into a more serious problem if you would say, this never to be done, that never to be done, period. No more conversation. If we exclude one entirely, we run into a problem. So there's room for everything. And that's what we're going to be looking at in our next class. And I'm going to leave it open, the conclusion, so that you are intrigued. I don't think that John is going to sleep for the next 2 weeks, waiting for the conclusion of, it's just like those soap operas in Brazil or anywhere in the world, you know, the scenes of the next chapter are to come, you know, wait until like, and it ends at the like, you know, most exciting moment.
Could you give us a hint? A hint?
No, read it. So you don't have to wait 2 weeks. You can just go on and read item 273. It's a really, really important one. It's going to bring some clarity to the topic. And that's what we're going to keep reading together. So if you want, just go ahead and you know, study this item of the medium's book.
Yes.
Fatima, take note for us, please, because I don't have my assistant here with me today. So medium's book, chapter 25, item 273. Okay, and that's it. And if you have, and make sure, please, to read again the entire article in the Spiritist review called Private Evocations, Mom, I Am Here, because what we are going to do after we finish studying together this item 273 about the evocations is we're going to dissect this message. We are going to link many different aspects of the message to different areas of the codification. So it's going to be good if the message is fresh in your mind. And that's it. That's what we need to have for our next class. Okay? So
Okay.
Fatima, you got
Susanna,
it?
say again. What do you want me to remember? I took a picture, but to say again, I'm going to make a notice here.
Well, it's chapter 25, item 273 of the Medium's book. And then just read the chapter again, so it's fresh for next class, because 2 weeks from now, we forget the details.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
That's the homework for next week, for next class.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, Cynthia dematerialized, and he showed up and Cynthia disappeared. So all kinds of physical manifestations happen here in our study group. All we see is a wall. It seems like a wall. Anyway,
You cannot see me?
no.
I don't know. I have a construction here in my house, people making noises, so I had to move a couple of times. And
Okay.
also I'm using a new phone. The only thing that worked, and I don't know what happened. I have my
I honestly, it looks like some kind of physical phenomena happening. because
you know what?
There's a
I
wall
know.
moving. There's a paper a sticker on it, and there's a shadow. So it's
Let me
very
see.
like,
Right. So just help me for a minute. I think that the camera is turned the other way around. Oh, let me see.
oh, the
If there's
camera.
help.
Oh, there you
See?
are. Okay. Finally, at the very end.
Right. Oh gosh.
You headed in the wrong direction. That's okay. It happens. It happens to all
silly,
of us.
very silly.
Okay. All right. JC, you also didn't say much today, my friend.
No, it's been an interesting conversation.
All right.
Right.
Would you like-
And we were hearing others talk today too, right? So we don't want to be the ones that hog the
No, that's
the
fine.
camera
That's
and
fine.
talk.
I love your participation. JC, would you mind doing the prayer for us?
Sure. Dear God, we thank you once again for the opportunity to learn with this special group of people. May all our ministering spirits always be at our side. And may we also have the opportunities to put into action whatever we have learned. Once again, we thank you for this opportunity and we look forward to our study 2 weeks from now. Thank you.